We begin with a Thursday afternoon incident when the online broadcast of C-SPAN network, which airs congressional hearings, was suddenly interrupted by RT's feed. It aired for about 10 minutes before going back to normal. The news network later said in a statement that this was an internal routing error. But this did not stop sensationalist headlines and a social media frenzy, which leads to a more serious question. Why are people so afraid of Russia these days? RT's Alexei Yaroshevsky takes a look.
Representative Maxine Waters took to the House floor on Thursday to talk about Trump and Russia when, boom,
and literally obliterate.
The C-SPAN network explained in a statement that RT interrupting its online broadcast was caused by an internal routing error. You know, with somebody pushing a wrong button or falling asleep on the control panel, whatever. But the genuine meltdown was in full swing.
While I'm on the floor of the House talking about Trump and Russia, I get interfered with and interrupted by Russia Today. It's strange. It's odd.
Surprised C-SPAN was interrupted by RT, the Kremlin-backed TV network. I thought that doesn't happen until Jan 20th.
This is no accident. We are obviously in a cyber war with Russia.
Why does this give me the serious creeps?
In any other year, I'd assume someone at C-SPAN hit the wrong button. But in 2017? Who knows?
We are in a state of unprecedented hysteria, anti-Russian hysteria in the mainstream and in social media here in the United States.
YouTube is coming under fire for removing a channel of a top conservative politics and law website. The video sharing site took down all of the content from the website Legal Insurrection, citing copyright infringement claims. YouTube says the copyright claims came from the Modern Language Association. Their allegations stem from an audio clip of an MLA vote on a resolution to boycott Israeli universities. They say their material from the vote was used without their permission. Legal Insurrection founder William Jacobson told FoxNews.com, quote, "It's very frustrating, it's very scary to have 8 years of content removed without a chance to defend yourself." Jacobson says he believes it was a politically motivated move.
According to a state-run Chinese media outlet, Donald Trump's administration has yet to take power. However, some of President-elect's cabinet picks are already risking large-scale war with China. During his Senate confirmation hearing, Rex Tillerson, Trump's choice for Secretary of State, compared China's activity in the South China Sea to Russia's annexation of Ukraine. Tillerson said, "We're going to have to send China a clear signal that first, the island building stops, and second, your access to those islands also is not going to be allowed." The Global Times, a state-run Chinese newspaper and website, said in an editorial response, Tillerson had better bone up on nuclear power strategies if he wants to force a big nuclear power to withdraw from its own territories. Unless Washington plans to wage a large-scale war in the South China Sea, any other approaches to prevent Chinese access to the islands will be foolish.
Syria's army command said on Friday that Israeli rockets were fired at a major military airbase outside Damascus. The command warned Israel of repercussions for what it called a flagrant attack. Syrian state television quotes the army as saying several rockets were fired from an area near the Sea of Galilee in northern Israel just after midnight. The airbase is used by President Bashar al-Assad's elite Republican guards. Israel neither confirms nor denies involvement in striking targets inside Syria. The Syrian army did not disclose if there were any casualties, but said the rockets caused a fire.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has asked his Russian counterpart to intervene in preventing the United States from moving its embassy in Israel to Jerusalem al-Quds.
We have passed on a written message from President Mahmoud Abbas to President Vladimir Putin. This message asks for President Putin's involvement.
Riqat added that the Palestinian leadership has information that U.S. President-elect Trump will move the embassy. The top Palestinian official stressed that the move will be very dangerous and a red line for Palestinians.
The United States will lift certain financial sanctions imposed on Sudan. President Obama signed the executive order on Friday, January 13th. The North African nation of Sudan was labeled a state sponsor of terrorism in the early 90s. In 2009, the International Criminal Court indicted Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir on war crimes charges because of the brutal and deadly conflict in Darfur. But Obama's executive order cites positive actions over the past 6 months. Those actions include reduced military activity, increased humanitarian access, and counterterrorism cooperation. As a result, parts of a Clinton-era trade embargo are being revoked, among other actions. The eased sanctions won't take effect for 6 months and are contingent on Sudan's continued progress. But an official with Human Rights Watch tells the Associated Press the administration is sending, quote, the worst possible message to Sudan and other repressive governments.
Turkey a step closer Friday to what President Tayyip Erdogan called strong leadership. Parliament approving reforms overnight that concentrate more power in his hands, allowing the president to issue decrees and be the member of a political party. It's the ruling AK party, which he founded, that's pushing them through. But opposition parties fear the changes will fuel authoritarianism. Lawmakers came to blows on Wednesday night when tempers boiled over during a debate on the bill. The AK party threatening fresh elections if the bill wasn't passed, the main opposition CHP responding with, bring it on. Erdogan says an early poll is not desirable but also not unthinkable. His battle isn't over yet. The changes still need to be passed in 2 more rounds of voting, then the constitutional package will be put to referendum. He says a fully executive presidency is what Turkey needs to navigate through its various crises. The Turkish lira taking its biggest weekly fall on Friday since the aftermath of a failed coup last July. The president's advisor saying so-called puppets had manipulated foreign markets and vowing to root them out.
The German Chancellor has warned the European Union against relying on, quote, eternal US support. Angela Merkel made the comment during a visit to Brussels. Her remark comes amid uncertainty in Europe about US President-elect Donald Trump's commitment to transatlantic ties. The Chancellor further told the EU that it must keep a united front in negotiations with Britain over its exit from the bloc. Merkel added that Europe and the EU must learn to take more responsibility in the world in the future. The German Chancellor said Europe faced growing challenges within its own borders and in nearby regions. Europe has been dealing with terrorist attacks, a refugee crisis and violence in eastern Ukraine for several years now.
Germany will soon start returning migrants to their first point of entry into the European Union. German Interior Ministry spokesman Tobias Plate made the announcement January 12th. Starting mid-March, migrants will be sent back to the first EU country they entered, where they are required to apply for asylum in accordance with the Dublin Accord. The move will mark the reversal of a halt on deportations to Greece, which was enacted in 2011 in an effort to reduce the country's economic strain, as it and Italy are the 2 main points of entry into the EU. In December 2016, the EU recommended a return to the former policy to send asylum seekers back to Greece, something Athens opposes. The move is expected to greatly slash refugee numbers in Germany ahead of the country's elections in September, but German refugee relief group Pro Azul warns the measure could overburden Greece as it continues to recover from recent economic collapse.
The United Nations says the humanitarian crisis created by Boko Haram's, quote, violent and inhuman campaign is worsening. Speaking to the Security Council, the UN humanitarian chief said over 10 million people were in need of aid in the Lake Chad region. Stephen O'Brien cited northeast Nigeria and parts of Cameroon, Chad and Niger as the areas affected. O'Brien said the crisis had dramatically grown over the past year. Since 2009, the terrorist group has killed thousands of civilians. A regional force has retaken most of the territory Boko Haram once controlled, but raids and bombings by the Takfiri group continue to cause widespread death and destruction.
ISIS wields its control over water against entire swaths of eastern Mosul. A local official said on January 9th that ISIS had cut off the water supply to 30 districts in the Iraqi city. All 30 districts are in eastern Mosul, where anti-ISIS forces have recently made significant gains against the extremists. The 30 districts were among those retaken by the anti-ISIS coalition, though Iraqi military officials expect to soon oust ISIS from all of East Mosul. In addition, the local council member said 10 more districts had access to water, but only intermittently. This isn't the first time water access has suffered due to fighting around ISIS's last big city stronghold in Iraq. Back in November, a water pipe was hit during clashes, cutting off the water supply for over 600,000 residents. Some 1 million civilians are still expected to call the war-torn city home.
A glimmer of hope for residents of Damascus, as long queues to get clean water may soon be a thing of the past. For many, the situation has become critical.
We can't wash anymore, and drinking water is becoming a problem. We take a bath every 10 days, but the water's very dirty. My daughter's body is covered in spots.
Syrian authorities say they've struck a deal with rebels to fix a water supply plant some 15 kilometers northwest of the city. The spring in Wadi Barada was knocked out of service late last month after fierce fighting erupted between government forces and rebels. This has left 5.5 million people with limited access to water, according to the UN. Many residents have been unable to wash and bathe, except at this centuries-old bathhouse, which has its own private water supply.
Last time I came here was 12 years ago for my wedding. If I had water in my house, I wouldn't have come today.
Thousands in Gaza protest ongoing power outages. According to the Associated Press, the January 12th demonstration was among the largest since Hamas took control of the area 10 years ago. In recent weeks, the people of Gaza have struggled with frequent power outages. Reuters reports that all of Gaza enjoys just 3 or 4 hours of electricity on an average day. The price to run a generator has skyrocketed. Sometimes the only hours of power come during the night, disrupting sleep for those who can't afford a generator. In this atmosphere, thousands took to the streets in an area controlled by a strict government. Hamas, a religious government that cracks down on dissent, quickly moved in on protesters. The Times of Israel reported several injuries, but no one was initially reported dead from clashes with police. One Associated Press reporter was briefly detained at gunpoint, but turned loose after handing over his phones.
On Wednesday, El Salvador, one of the world's most dangerous countries, recorded its first full day without a single reported murder in 2 years. According to records kept by the Associated Press, the last time El Salvador went without a reported homicide was January 22, 2015. While the country's murder rate fell by almost 1/5 last year, El Salvador is still one of the world's most violent countries, with 81.2 murders per 100,000 residents and a staggering average of 14.4 homicides a day. El Salvador's population of about 6.6 million citizens live under the shadow of powerful gangs who run extensive drug trafficking and extortion rackets.
Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson says he knows of no specific threat to next week's inauguration activities, but just in case, law enforcement personnel have been getting ready for trouble.
At a Maryland training facility, Secret Service agents are doing final preps for Inauguration Day. There he is. Fox News was granted exclusive access to this week's training that includes a mock-up of the White House parade route. Secret Service agents working through 40 incidents, from armed attacks to accidents.
How are we going to respond if the President or First Lady were to sprain an ankle while they're walking? If there's an assault of some sort or a mortar attack? Every scenario has a different response.
At Secret Service headquarters, Director Joseph Clancy said the inauguration shares the same high-level security designation as the Pope's visit, as well as the Republican and Democratic conventions. In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we try to what-if these things constantly. We do tabletop exercises. And so everyone is on the same page.
More than 700,000 people are expected, about the same size as the last inauguration. But this time, 99 protest groups have applied for permits.
If you make an overt act towards the president or any of our protectees, now you've crossed that line, and we're going to respond. But if someone is shouting or yelling, certainly their First Amendment rights we protect.
Director Clancy served on President Obama's detail. He has already met with the president-elect. During the campaign, Mr. Trump was rushed off stage in Nevada.
I have sat down with Mr. Trump on a couple of occasions. We talked about security in general and what we can do for him and his family.
Now, the inauguration. A disruption is planned. However, bikers for Trump plan to ride into D.C. to support the president-elect.
We're anticipating a celebration here. We don't anticipate any problems. We have a strict code of conduct where we don't condone violence. But again, in the event that we're needed, you can certainly count on the Bikers for Trump to form a wall of meat.
A wall of meat. That's an interesting phrase, right? I believe you're going to be vastly outnumbered. Anti-Trump groups are reserving, in terms of parking spaces, I understand, they got far more than the pro-Trump people. Is that accurate?
Well, again, we're used to being outnumbered, and we're very confident. Our group is full of, the backbone of the biker community is the veteran. And so these are guys that aren't really used to backing down. But, you certainly won't see bikers out there screaming, calling for the destruction of private property or the death of police officers. we're going to be throwing the halftime inauguration rally at John Marshall Park that will kick off shortly after Donald Trump exits the stage to go into the Capitol, and it will end shortly before the parade on Pennsylvania Avenue.
A teachers organization in Philadelphia is encouraging teachers to wear Black Lives Matter t-shirts and buttons and provide lessons on the movement every day for 1 week. The Caucus of Working Educators, a faction of the Teachers Union, is developing lesson plans and curriculum ideas for the teachers of grades from kindergarten through high school for the week of January 23rd. The plans, distilled from the movement's 13 guiding principles, such as embracing diversity and globalism, will be available online, organizers said Friday.
For the first time in U.S. history, Lady Liberty will be portrayed as a black woman on an officially minted coin.
As we as a nation continue to evolve, so does Liberty's representation. My final thought is to remind us that we live in a nation which affords us the opportunity to dream big and try and accomplish the seemingly impossible.
The United States Mint has unveiled the new $100 gold coin in celebration of its 225th anniversary. It's the first in a series of diverse 24-karat gold coins that will depict Lady Liberty as Asian American, Hispanic American, and Indian American. A new coin will be released every 2 years. There is currently only one other coin in circulation that represents a person of color, the Sacagawea dollar. The 2017 American Liberty coin is set to be released in April and is primarily meant for collectors.
According to a report released Friday, a Nevada woman in her 70s died in September from a superbug infection that resisted all antibiotics. According to UPI, the case raises concern about the spread of such infections, which have become more common over past decades as germs have developed resistance to widely used antibiotics.
Every time we take an antibiotic, we are exposing the bacteria that live in and on our body to that antibiotic and selecting for potential resistance.
In the case of the woman from Nevada, she had recently returned from India, where she contracted an infection in a hospital following surgery on her hip. Report co-author Dr. Randall Todd is the Director of Epidemiology and Public Health Preparedness for the Washoe County Health District in Reno. He told the Reno Gazette-Journal that the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention basically reported that there was nothing in our medicine cabinet to treat this lady.
Hundreds of domestic cats have been quarantined in New York City after contracting a strain of highly contagious avian flu at shelters operated by a major animal rescue organization. According to Reuters, officials say the virus has also infected at least one veterinarian. More than 450 cats will remain at a temporary shelter for up to 90 days until a University of Wisconsin lab confirms they are no longer contagious. The New York City Health Department says it's the first time the H7N2 strain of the virus has infected domestic cats. The virus is most commonly found in birds. Health Commissioner Mary Bassett said in a statement, "We continue to urge New Yorkers who have adopted cats from ACC shelters to be on alert for symptoms in their pets and take proper precautions."
This is the place, the Animal Care Center and Shelter in East Harlem, where two previously unheard of public health concerns happened. The first, a strain of H7N2 bird flu, was found in cats for the first time ever last week. And now, also for the first time ever, that flu strain has gone from birds to cats to a human.
The person is a veterinarian. We're talking about someone who had multiple exposures to many sick cats in a very invasive way without respiratory protection. So if anybody in the world is going to get avian flu from a cat, it's going to be someone who has such close contact with those secretions.
A massive ice storm is expected to coat the roads this weekend from the Texas Panhandle to Pennsylvania.
Tens of millions of people are in the path of this winter blast. Oklahoma's governor declared a state of emergency yesterday so crews could start prepping roads. And there's already some ice that's starting to form. You can see it here on this fence. That can pose a problem if it gets on power lines because it can snap the power lines. Just up the road in Joplin, Missouri, that winter storm blew through and left a coat of ice all across the city. Icicles were hanging off signs, and the area was covered in a thin layer of ice, making roads very slippery. Drivers in the Show Me State also have to keep an eye out for this: trees toppled by ice that end up blocking the road. Road crews have been busy for hours throughout the Midwest, salting and sanding major roadways to keep them passable. The weather is affecting the NFL's weekend game even before kickoff. The contest between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers in Kansas City has been turned from a day game to a night game. That'll give road crews more time to prep those roads and make it safer for fans.
Picture in a story that's gone viral. A Menasha plow driver goes above and beyond the call of duty, helping to make sure a city resident gets home safely during last night's snowfall. New at 5, Ellen Natesic talks with the driver who says he was just in the right place at the right time.
The streets in the city of Menasha are clear of snow and ice today, thanks to the work of the city's team of plow drivers. But it's what Jim Coffernis came across last night while out on his route downtown that's getting all the attention today.
Pulled up on the intersection of Milwaukee and Main, and here there was a guy in a battery-operated chair, and he was stuck. He was going back and forth.
So Coffernis and another Good Samaritan who stopped helped to push the man out of the snow. And then, without hesitation, as captured in this picture, Coffernis deviated from his plow route, clearing a path for 2 blocks so the man in the chair could make it home.
I had to get him home. I didn't want him to get hurt or anything like that.
The picture of the man following the plow with a narrative of what Jim and Truck 26 did was posted to Facebook. It's since been shared nearly 2,000 times. Comments of thanks commending Coffernis for a job well done have also been posted. It's attention Coffernis wasn't looking for when he came to the man's aid. In fact, after working 17 hours yesterday, when he finally got home early this morning,
I just want to go to bed and get some sleep because it was a long day yesterday and I'm back in early today. So.
Coffernis isn't much for his newfound fame. He says he was just doing his job.
I'm just glad the guy's home safe and I could help him out.